Hey everybody, Venturous again. This is going to be another video related to training the Obiani and the reverse Obiani. And there's actually a trick I've discovered to help people learn those two techniques, because I still see a lot of people struggle with both of these moves. A lot of people can't quite grasp the coordination of this move or how the move is supposed to feel. So this trick is hopefully going to take a lot of the thought process out of trying to control that move and let the move control itself. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. Now I'm assuming at this point everyone that watches these videos has a saber of some type where they have a blade and some sort of a heavier hilt. Okay? So if you don't have something like that, then you can use anything that's about this length. The setup I have here is probably a 12-inch hilt and a 24-inch blade. So anything that's long and straight, anywhere between 30 and 36 inches, that's the kind of thing you want, that's the kind of length you want. And you want one end to be top heavy. Okay? So for this move, for a lot of the people that are still struggling with this move, I want you to take your saber, and instead of grabbing it at the hilt, I want you to grab it by the blade. And what this does is it makes the top of the saber heavy. It makes it top heavy. And the reason for this is you want momentum to be your teacher. Okay? So we're going to use that top heavy part as our guide, essentially. Now for the grip itself, when you're doing this move, you don't want a really tight grip. A lot of people you'll hear say, you know, if you have a loose grip, if someone hits your saber, it's going to go flying out of your hands, or you're going to lose the saber itself. We're more interested in spinning and flourishing. We're not interested in people actually hitting our saber, so you don't have to worry about that. So for this, you can actually have a looser grip. Now you don't want too loose where the saber is falling out of your hand, but you do want a little bit of play in the grip, okay? Now what you're going to do, like I said, is you're going to grip it at the end of the blade, and you're going to feel the top heaviness of the saber immediately, okay? Now you're going to start with the saber pointing up, and you always want to try to keep the saber pointing up, and I'll explain that more in a second. So I'm just going to take a downward basic flourish, like that, okay? Now when you start like this, you're going to feel the momentum of that saber. As you go down, you don't want to start controlling this with muscles, because if you do, eventually you're going to get to a point where it's going to start straining your wrist, it's going to start straining your forearm. You want to give that wrist so that the saber can move all the way around, okay? You don't necessarily have to flare out your fingers like that. You can still sort of grip the saber, but you want to have give in your wrist to allow that saber to go around the way it should, okay? Again, you're taking that heaviness of the saber and using that momentum to your advantage, okay? So this is basically the first part of the Obiani move, the original Obiani. Alright, so the first part, again, is just down and up. Now, like I said, I'm not controlling that movement with my muscles. The only thing I'm doing from this part up is I'm guiding the saber back up. And you should be able to feel the difference between controlling and guiding once you start doing this. Okay? That's the first part. Second part is this. So like I said, you always want to try to keep the hilt pointing up. So that's the first part. The second part is it's going under the arm and up. Okay? And again, you're letting momentum control this. You're not trying to control it yourself. So all I'm doing there is it's going down and it's coming under my arm. So I'm tucking it under my arm or behind my shoulder. Okay? That's the second movement. So down, under the arm. And for this part, your grip actually can loosen a fair amount. You don't have to grip it as much as you did in this part. Alright, that's the second part. From here, you're bringing the hand forward and out. So you're just taking that saber and unwinding it from your arm. And again, You're not trying to necessarily control this movement, you're letting momentum do it for you. Alright, so the first part, down and up. Second part, down and up under the arm. And the third part, down and up in front of you. And when you put those together, you essentially have the Obiani move. But you're much less controlling it now, and you're letting essentially the saber do most of the work for you because it's top heavy. Now when you start speeding that up, and when you start connecting those moves, then you're going to start to feel what the Obiani actually feels like. Okay? Like I said, I'm not really controlling this movement. All I'm doing is guiding the momentum. If that makes sense. Now, when you do this, your hand is going to want to flare out a bit, especially there. And I've shown this in other videos where when you do that basic flourish, you almost open your hand. You can do this with pretty much a closed wrist, or a closed hand, I'm sorry. But it does require more use of the forearm and the elbow. And the wrist. So if you can see my hand there, I can do this pretty much with a closed hand the entire time. But my arm is moving quite a bit more to control that momentum. Okay? Now, like I said, we're more interested in spinning. We're not interested in dueling in this kind of what we're doing here. So you can use a looser grip for these techniques. Okay, so that's the basic Obiani. This also works for the reverse. So again, if you start with the saber pointing up and you always try to keep the saber pointing up like this time we're going backwards with the move instead of forwards. So we're going backwards and then in front under the arm. Same position, we're just going forward with it now. So this is basically an upward basic flourish. So upward, in front of the body now under the arm. And then from there it goes behind and unwind. So back, under the arm, unwind. And again, once you start stringing those moves together, there's your reverse Obiani. Okay. Now, training the moves like this has many different advantages. First of all is, obviously, like I said earlier, the saber pretty much takes over most of the movement for you. All you're doing is guiding the saber. This is also really good for training the rotation of the blade, because I still see a lot of people, especially when they're doing that basic Obiani, when they get to this point, they're pulling that blade across instead of rotating it. By doing this, you almost can't do that, because once the saber goes down, it wants to come back up. It doesn't want to stop halfway and come across. So by doing it this way, you're actually training that rotation of the blade. So the blade and the saber are both moving in a circle the entire time. Okay, so that's going to break that habit. First of all, it's going to train people away from that habit who already have it, and it's going to train people not to do it in the first place. Now, once you've practiced a little bit using this technique with the saber reversed, okay, switch it back to your regular grip, gripping the hilt, and I want you to try to keep that feeling in your mind as you do the move. Do it a little bit slower than you were doing it the opposite way, and try to keep that feeling of that top heaviness. And eventually what you're going to find, first of all, the move is going to feel faster. You're probably going to find you can actually do this move a little bit faster than you have been. But it's also going to feel a lot smoother, and it should feel more natural. You should be able to feel the move more, if that makes sense. Because a lot of people try to over-control this move, when really this is more of a momentum-based move, because the rotation of the blade is basically doing this move for you. All you're doing is controlling this movement with your wrist and your forearm. So that's my little tip on working on these two moves, the basic and the reversed. Grip it on the end of the blade and basically let this top heaviness do all that work for you. Okay, the things to keep in mind in these moves are, like I said, first of all, practice it slow. Don't try to string it all together at once. Do each section of the move itself before moving on to the next. And then, like I said, always try to keep the saber pointing like this. Okay, so up, up, and up. And when you can do that effectively, then you can start stringing those sections together. And then at this point, you should feel the flow of this move a lot better. And it should feel a lot smoother for you. Okay? Same with the reverse. This one is a little bit harder. This one you do have to kind of guide a little bit more. You're not necessarily controlling it, but you are guiding it a little bit more with the arm. This one is a little bit trickier. This one is going to take a little bit longer to get. But again, using this technique, it's going to really help with that. So that's my tip on that. Look forward to the next video. See you later.